and now it's not just Louisiana. I mean, this is a part of the world that was just getting on its feet slowly after Katrina, and now we have this. And I don't think we really truly understand the import, the economic and the social import that this is going to have on our country and in our economy. I mean, just 105. It's $10.5 billion. I'm pretty sure that's the figure. That's what we're dealing with here in terms of how it's going to impact our budget to clean that up. It's incalculable, absolutely incalculable. And then, of course, in Boston, we have a water main that's broken, and there are millions of gallons of water that are going back into the reservoirs and the dams. It means people in Boston are without water. They're scrambling to get water right now. So we have Neptune running amok at this point. We haven't even come close to the Grand Cross, which is happening in June, and Neptune doesn't even really play a role in that. And yet we're seeing oil and we're seeing water they're just wreaking havoc on our system. And I've got a pen pal, a cyber pen pal back east, pretty sharp guy. Goes by the name of Fintius, and we've been sort of batting this subject back and forth. And you know, he thinks that the United States is under attack right now, and both of these things were open acts of aggression towards the United States, and trying to get the United States to understand that it's going to have to come crawling into a globalist, one world, one economic agenda. And he might be right. I would not be. I would not toss it off casually. You know, we don't fully understand what's behind these events, but they're happening with rapidity. And you know, it's been my contention that here on the West Coast, which is where I'm living, that 2010 was the year that we're going to see the big earthquake in Los Angeles. And I said that back in February, and unfortunately, I'm going to stay by that. Just to show you that I'm not necessarily afraid of what I'm putting out there. I'm going to be down in the LA area in June. So, you know, it may not be a great time to travel at that time, but I'm not going to let, you know, what I think could happen actually frighten me. You know, we're going to be where we're going to be, and that's just the way it is. So, yeah, here we are. We're looking at natural disasters or unnatural disasters, and they're plaguing our environment. So this is the time that we're living in, and I'm not sure necessarily what we can ultimately do about it. I mean, you know, what are we going to do? We're going to bum rush Washington D.C. and get 5 million people around the giant penis of George Washington. Is that what we're going to do? I don't think so. It hasn't happened since the 60s, and even then those events were highly orchestrated to begin with. So what are we going to do? What we're going to do is we're going to look at the events that are unfolding around us. We're going to do our best to understand them and decipher them and decode them and discern what their meaning is in our lives and in the lives of those around us. And we're going to see, to the best of our ability, what's real. You know, we're going to try to, you know, tread that razor's edge. And, you know, that's what we're here to do right now. And we cannot lose our heads. That's the big thing. We can't lose our heads while all this is going on. Cannot lose our heads. So here we go. I've got a phone call from Alexyss. She can't call out, but I get to call her. I just checked my email. It's a good thing. So let me do this. I'm gonna make some phone noises, and we're gonna call her. I'm gonna write down this number. So here we go. Good thing I'm Johnny on the spot, and this is net radio, and we can do this because I have the ability. So bear with me while I do the dial out function. And let me see here. Call out. Post dial out. All right. Bear with me. Here we go. We're going to do this. 404. I can't give you her number. I'll have to keep my little shut here. All right. So let's see if we can get Alexyss K Tylor on the line. Let's start talking to her and stop talking about natural and unnatural disasters. Here we go.
Hello?
Alexyss?
Yeah.
Hey, it's Robert.
Hey, thank you for calling me. I can't call out. My phone has been jammed up for like an hour.
Hey, no worries. We have the wonderful world of modern technology, which makes things pretty easy to do like this. So how you doing down there?
I'm okay.
Yeah, so are you in Atlanta right now?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me, okay, first of all, a lot of the people that are listening to our conversation right now they may or may not be familiar with you. I've been putting some of your videos up on Facebook. I put a post on my website today. I kind of looked at your chart, I peeped your chart, and looked at some of the planets and tried to get kind of a rough overview as to, why you're into what you're into. But a lot of folks may not know who you are and what your background is about. So let's start from the beginning. Let's start from the alpha. And why don't you tell the folks a little bit about yourself and kind of what got you interested in this whole concept of what I would call, and I think what you would call, sacred sexuality.
Oh, I call it spiritual sexuality. My name is Alexyss K Tylor. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm the producer and the creator of the show and host of the Alexyss K Tylor Vagina Power Show, and I'm the author of Spiritual Sexuality, Vagina Power, Penis Power, Sperm Power, Vagina Healing with Your Man, Volume 1, The Metaphysics of Sex. And I'm currently working on some other projects as well. July 10th in New York City, it's the Summer of the Dick. So I'm dealing with Penis Power Part 1, The Resurrection of the Gods. And basically my mother is a preacher. There are a lot of preachers and healers and seers in my family. So I grew up in a very religious, church-oriented, spiritual, the Southern Baptist hymns. That's basically what my life revolved around. So it's just natural, to be intuitive and to do psychic readings and do medical intuitive readings. But from the church, there was a lot of dysfunction and hypocrisy in the church, and you're taught to separate spirituality from sexuality, or there's something satanic or evil about sex that should not be talked about or included in the church, that it's not godly or holy. But yet, looking at the condemnation of homosexuality in the church, I saw homosexuality very prevalent in the church, and men married to women but secretly loving men, women married to preachers in the church but secretly loving women, people physically abusing and sexually abusing their children, lying, drug addicts, alcoholics. I mean, I saw everything inside of the church that was going on a deeper level than was going on outside of the church. And supposedly the church is supposed to be a hospital for the spiritually wounded and the sick and to heal them. But it was more fucked up and sick people in the church that were generated the whole hypocritical system of the church than it was outside of it. And dealing with my own mother, who was very abusive and would justify it with religion and quoting the scripture, and because she was the evangelist, she was the head of the church. So anything that she said, people considered coming directly from the mouth of God, so she could do no wrong, although they knew she was wrong. So nobody would report the abuse or speak out against the abuse because they felt that, God would punish them, so that scripture, touch not mine anointed and do my prophets no harm. So even though the prophet does wrong, the prophet justifies it and says, well, only God can judge me, only God can chastise me because I'm God's servant and I'm protected. So if you attack me for anything I've done wrong, God will punish you. You're just a mere mortal, a sinner. This is the type of hypocrisy and abuse that I was subjected to. And that's what led to me doing what I do in such a bold, raw, real way, exposing the truth, especially when I had a lesbian relationship when I was a teenager, and my mother put me out in the cold because she was saying God told her to do that and take everything I own, and I basically left with what was on my back, and went from there to living, you know, in my car, and finally moving in with my grandmother and getting a job, and then the man who hired me for the job got me pregnant with my son and basically told me, get, you know, an abortion because I'm not going to marry you. I'm not going to take care of him. You're on your own. And I chose to have my child anyway, and struggling with the dysfunction of relationships, not realizing that my self-hatred and my low self-esteem that was implanted there from my mother and all of my experiences led to so much dysfunction with men, and the contradiction, the breaks within my own mind and within my own body, feeling guilt about sexual desire and wanting sexual pleasure, and feeling shame around my vagina, and a lot of pain associated and humiliation from my mother and my family, from being a female and then being a sexual being and spiritual.
So how old were you when your mom kind of turned you out to the streets because she found out about your same-sex relationship?
19.
19 years old. And what was going through your mind at that time? Were you confused? Were you angry? Where was your head at?
No, I was happy. It's like a part of me was, I was happy because she was so abusive and so cruel and so vulgar and vicious and disrespectful. I always wanted to leave but had a fear of leaving because she would always say, well, where are you going to go? Who's going to want you? You're too stupid to take care of yourself. There's nothing that you can do but stay here and, you know, be subjected to me. That's all you're good for. So a part of me wanted to leave, but I was like a 19-year-old chronologically, but like a 10-year-old mind because that's the way we were grown to be. So it was scary, but yet I was glad she did it because I didn't have the courage to do it for myself, and I didn't believe in myself. So I was very, very excited, and I'm 42, and I never went back.
So do you think that on some level that you kind of conspired with your subconscious to create an event so that it was so damning to your mother? I mean, it would have been one thing to, like, you know, have a relationship with a guy, but we're talking same-sex. You went all the way.
I couldn't. You know? I wasn't allowed to have a man.
Okay, so but what you did is you created something in your life that was an anathema, the ultimate anathema to your mother. I mean, you think on some level that you conspired with your own subconscious to create that experience so that there was no looking back?
No, because it was something I always wanted to do. I always wanted to experience that, so it wasn't just to make her put me out and not look back. I always looked back because it just took me up until a few years ago to resolve the pain and the shame and self-hatred and low self-esteem around having a mother to not love you and to accept you and abandon you. And you see, you have to understand, my mother was always in and out of my life. My grandmother raised me from the first part of my mother came back maybe when I was like 10, 12, and she got married a second time and became a preacher. So it was always up and down, and I never knew what to expect from her and where she was coming from. So when she put me out at 19, I had only been with her since I was, like 12 years old.
Yeah.
So she was never the greatest mother, the greatest friend, the greatest woman, or an example of what a human being, a woman and a mother should and should not be. So at that point, it's like I could not do anything right. So I decided to go ahead and do what I felt. You can't be with men, you're going to hell. You be with women, you're going to hell. So you see what I'm saying? So it's like a damned if you do and damned if you don't kind of scenario.
Right, yeah. So the woman that's on your videos with you on the from the Cable Access show, is that your grandmother?
That's my mother.
That's your mother. Now, how did you get from having a really rough relationship with her to having her on your Cable Access show where you're like, you're being really open and really honest, and she's sitting there and dialoguing with you? How did you get to that place?